the meeting from April 15th. Any questions or concerns?
Move to approve.
I wasn't here.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item, discussion and action on private drive at landfill property 1150 Cratley Lane. Speaking of the
Yeah.
parks.
So in your packet, I attached a map for reference. So this is a property that the city owns in North Hudson, and on the property it's basically the city acquired it because it was the old landfill site. So in the past it was the dump, and then it was capped, and then on top of the cap, there's 4 baseball diamonds. The city has a couple of storage buildings, and then we have some material out there, kind of brush, chip, wood chips, sand, sweepings, piles, so on and so forth. So that area outlined in red is the city's. So for the past, I'll just say several years, there's a resident in the village of North Hudson, and it's indicated with kind of that red pin. They've been in contact with both the city of Hudson and the St. Croix Rod and Gun Club, and their major concern is the dust that is kicked up while people travel to and from the Rod and Gun Club. And they brought it to my attention, and I told them that I would bring it to Public Works Committee, just so that you're aware of the situation out there, and that the city has been doing something on their portion of the road, and that there have been efforts to try and mitigate the dust and have the dust controlled. So there is kind of, so if it's a private road, it's not a through street. It's the only access. So if you can see, to the bottom of the image, if you go another probably quarter of a mile, it gets to the gun range in North Hudson. So it's quite a bit further south to the gun range. Right to the south, the southern border there, the road transitions from the city of Hudson property to the St. Croix Rod and Gun Club property. And basically what I'm bringing tonight is just to inform you and kind of get your feedback on what you think an appropriate mitigation in the future would be. So currently what the city does is we go in there and we grade the road periodically throughout the summer, usually in the spring, once in the summer, and then once in the fall, because there's a lot of traffic up to the baseball diamonds that is used by the Hudson Boosters Club. So per our agreement with the Hudson Boosters, the city is to maintain that access up to that point. So a lot of grading, so on and so forth. And then on top of that, we'll hire the county once a year to come in and apply calcium chloride. And calcium chloride is a bonding agent that is applied on many crushed rock roads throughout the state of Wisconsin, Minnesota. And basically what the calcium chloride does is it chemically combines to the dust, and it keeps it down. It's not a cure-all, it doesn't eliminate the dust, but it reduces it drastically. But it only lasts for probably, a month to a month and a half. So what I'm suggesting, what I recommend is we just continue with the current practice and maybe do 3 times throughout the summer, once in the spring, once in the summer, once in the fall, the calcium chloride application. Because the people that live in that home that have contacted me are complaining about, dust on their homes, they can't go outside and play, hazard to their health, so on and so forth. And so I just don't, I don't want to put the city in a position where we become liable moving forward. So that's kind of the background of the story, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can at this point.
How much per year do you think that those applications cost?
It's roughly, about $1,500 per application?
And what about the grading and the maintenance that happens once per year?
That's in-house.
Okay.
Yep, that's in-house. And so when I kind of showed this map. I showed this map to the property owner because they were under the assumption, if you see kind of that Crush Rock Road that goes off to the east, kind of on the bottom of the map, their assumption was that the city actually owned up to that point. And so when I kind of showed them the map of what the city actually owns, they were kind of surprised by that, because for the longest time they were under the assumption that, like I said, they were been told by the Rod and Gun Club that the city owns up, because there's a gate that kind of goes across the private drive right at that offshoot that goes to the east. And so they were kind of surprised when even if we do, and let's just say we go to the extreme and we follow through and put a, hot mix asphalt application or a lift on here, a 2-inch lift to mitigate the dust on our road. Even if we were to do that to our property line, there's still a 100-foot chunk of crushed rock road that goes past their place that would still kick up the dust that would cause the same issues.
Right.
The other problem that I have is, the road was in there prior to that housing development going in there. And then also, there's estimate to put down hot mix asphalt is about $100,000 to $125,000.
Right, that's not
And it's not serving one single City of Hudson resident. So that's the other thing as well. There is no maintenance agreement on record. There's nothing on record for this other than an easement for a road, Cratley Lane.
So going south on that road, it only goes to the Rod and Gun Club?
Yep.
And they want nothing to do with maintenance of their own road?
Mm-mm. And these people have contacted the city, they've
Sure.
contacted the people of Rod and Gun Club, and Rod and
So
Club really
we
doesn't want
own
anything
the
to do with
part of the road that's in the red box?
In the red box,
And
yep.
the Rod and Gun Club owns the road south of us?
Yeah.
But they don't own all the property?
Nope, so
There's just an easement?
they do own, it's like a triangle. They own a couple kind of properties, but the Rod and Gun Club owns the property that this road is on,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
yes.
Okay.
So I have a
It's a weird, it was a gentleman's handshake, I'm afraid, that happened, in the past, with nothing written down. Like I said, no recorded maintenance agreements or nothing, so we're kind of shooting from the hip, so to
Right.
speak.
So I have a question, Mike. So is it the south part here that's where are the neighbors getting the dust? Because we're pretty far away from the ones on the west side, it looks like. Is it the south part there at the end of the property line?
Yep, so you see the cul-de-sac?
Yep.
Okay, so the residents that have called me just live on the north side of that cul-de-sac, kind of with that red pin.
That's what that is.
And they're the only people that have contacted me
Okay.
about it.
So what I'm wondering is, if we treated it, would it make more sense to treat just that southern portion and going into, if we could get an agreement with the Rod and Gun Club, sorry, if we treated that portion there more often and not the whole road, would that solve what we're looking for? You know what I mean? Like in the summer, I don't know, once a month or something. I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah, what I would say to that is, if we're gonna hire the county and have them come out there, I might as well have them do the entire stretch
thing,
than
okay.
just a 100-foot
Okay.
chunk. They probably won't even come out for that, to tell you the truth. They'd say,
Okay.
Right.
I just didn't know if the dust from the other portion is really relevant, because it seems like it's far away from where they are, but.
right. And that's kind of the issue that I see as well, is how much of this is the dust coming from the city's portion? Because typically, the only people that are going south of our baseball fields are Rod and Gun Club users,
Right.
And has the residents, have they talked to the city of North Hudson about it? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
No, they've been in contact with us. So I did call North Hudson, Village of North Hudson, Patrick, the Public Works Director, just about, checking their ordinances, because some cities will have ordinances where they require every, street, alley to be paved, so on and so forth, and they have nothing like that on their ordinances.
Okay.
So we're following what they have, which is nothing. So, But no, they haven't been contacted to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, I think the best we can do is what you're recommending then, which is just to treat that portion that we own.
Yeah,
And I think the
maybe a
other,
little more frequently then.
well, I mean, it seems like at some point Village would have to get involved because that portion is even closer to where those residents are, so. We can't really control that though, right? That's
That's a private road.
Oh, that's owned by the Rod and Gun Club?
Yeah.
So, okay,
The village is probably,
so the
I
village
would
doesn't have
guess,
any?
not going to.
Well, could we just ask the Rod and Gun Club if we could treat part of that road?
Well, I think that they should treat their own road.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you, like you said, it's not benefiting even one Hudson resident for us to be spending money maintaining a road for the Rod and Gun Club. I would think the resident might want to start contacting the village, and they would be the ones to complain to if it's
As a nuisance.
right, yeah, they're not getting along with their neighbor, and their neighbor in this case is mostly the Rod and Gun Club. That has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's a unique situation.
It
Let's
is.
just say that. Okay. So I think moving forward, I guess the direction that I see is continue the treatment of our portion, just so that we're complying with kind of, what we have been doing in the past.
So do we treat just to our edge of our property, or do we go all the way down to that gated driveway on?
We have been going down to the gate,
Well, that's awfully nice of us.
right?
If we're going down the gate, we're really doing the road right behind their property.
Yeah,
then.
right.
That's, And I don't have an objection to that. It's probably minimal cost to do that compared to the other,
Right.
what we've already done. But I wonder if it's a solution.
Right.
More frequent application is probably the only solution.
I mean, I can reach out to the Rod and Gun Club and just see if there's an alternate access point.
Have you tried?
I haven't yet.
That-
No, I haven't.
I think it's worth a conversation with them, just to make sure everyone who's currently
Right.
active in these properties is on the same page with the facts.
Right. Because if there could be an alternate route to the Rod and Gun Club, it wouldn't eliminate it completely, but it would greatly reduce their issue.
Correct. And we need to make sure that they know that they own up to
Yep,
the
the Rod and
where
Gun
the
Club.
boundary really is. They may be under the presumption as well that
It's up to the gate.
it's up to that gated property, yeah.
Right.
Is there an agreement by which they actually come and use that road across?
No,
So they have no,
no. So, I mean, you don't want to go to this extreme, but we could just put a gate. We could just,
Right.
I mean, it's a private, but I don't want to do that either, because that would cause a whole other issue.
see if they're willing to come up with the cost of one application in midsummer,
Sure.
something like that.
Right.
And have we thought about maybe, I like that idea, maybe if they would be willing to pay for one of the applications and then we add another application.
Yeah.
And that's just showing that we're wanting to work together because we share a road together.
Right.
But really, they shouldn't be using our private driveway at all.
One could say that, maybe, yeah.
So maybe, I mean, since, I just want to think about, if the people 10 years from now who are dealing with this same issue over and over again,
Yeah.
who might not be us,
Right. Right.
How could we, is there anything we could do? Can we come together with an agreement?
I
or-
think drafting an agreement would be in the best interest of both the
I do
city, the village, and the Rod
Right.
and Gun Club.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Just to have something on
Well,
file.
and maybe even
It's up.
Yep.
the boosters. I mean, they're the ones who maintain and operate this field, right?
Correct, yeah.
So
And we do have a lease with the boosters.
we have a lease with them,
Yep.
okay.
Yep,
But as an interested party,
right. That utilizes that road.
yeah,
The other 50% of the time.
yep.
Okay,
It is a very interesting situation.
yeah. Yep. That's why I brought it here. Okay. I don't think, I don't really need a motion at this time, but what I will do is I will continue with the treatment. I'll up the treatments to 3 of them this year, spring, summer, fall. In the meantime, I'll contact Rod and Gun Club. We'll draft a maintenance agreement, which will come back to a future Public Works Committee meeting for approval.
Very good.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Excellent. Item 3, review draft policy for curb and gutter replacement.
So Chairman Weber, kind of piggybacking on some of the other policies that we're kind of in the works of doing, retaining wall, sidewalk replacement, so on and so forth. We really don't have anything on file for a curb and gutter, as well as the next agenda item is alleys. But for the purpose of this one, I did look at some other communities that have a curb replacement policy, and took some things from them, and then just kind of put on some things that we kind of currently do as far as our assessment, what we currently assess, and so on and so forth. So, what I want to do is just, currently what we do is, 50%. If it's new construction, the property owner is assessed 100% with a curb and gutter, okay? If it's repair or replacement, they're charged 50% of the project, so 50-50 split with the city, okay? So the procedures portion of the document, number 1, it says if a curb and gutter must be replaced, the entire 10-foot section must be replaced from expansion joint to expansion joint, and that's pretty standard practice in the industry. Number 2, new curbs shall be finished to match the existing curb and or apron elevations. Curbs replaced on overlaid streets shall be finished to match the existing curb and overlaid with the appropriate thickness of asphalt. 3, and this is kind of one that I want to get your feedback on, is there must be a minimum of 100 linear feet of replacements before the city posts advertisements for replacement. The totals can be from one project or the culmination of many. And I guess what I'm getting at there is, instead of trying to kind of piecemeal projects together, if a resident calls and they just have a 10-foot chunk of curb, it really doesn't make sense to go out and bid just that curb, because we haven't really done any curb replacement in-house. It's always been contracted out. And so that's kind of the standard practice moving forward, is we would contract out the curb replacement. So to just do 10 foot of curb is probably not the most logical. So I'd want to get kind of a bigger project before I go out and bid it, so to speak. And then the other thing too is, in the capital improvement plan, it's sidewalk and curb and gutter replacement are kind of in one account, $75,000 a year. So do we want to put a limit on the amount of money that we spend on curb each year and a limit that we spend on sidewalks each year, so that we kind of have a general idea of, we're not spending our entire budget on curbs and no sidewalks get fixed, or vice versa? Do we want to point that out in the policy, saying, a maximum number of, let's say $20,000 is appropriated to curb replacement every year, just so that we don't have, 5,000 linear feet of requests made to the Public Works Department, so on and so forth. And then do we create a matrix that kind of prioritizes, say we do get a lot of requests every year, and we do. I probably have six or 7 people that have called me and contacted me. There's a development out in Grandview, off of Grandview to the north. And it must have been a bad patch of concrete, because every joint there, it's just eating away and it needs to be replaced. And they contacted me, and I kind of told them the standard assessment, it's 50% us and 50% them. They're an association. Do you want to move forward with this? And they said I'd get back to you. So, but I just don't want to get in a position where we get all these requests and we don't have the money to pay for them, when I say it. And so to create kind of a prioritized matrix, kind of just same thing with the sidewalks that we're doing, how we're prioritizing the levels and so on and so forth, and create a matrix for that.
Is that something that creating a matrix, is that something you think that we could do?
Yeah.
Or
In-house.
it's less complex than the sidewalk
Yeah,
matrix that we're
I think what we
creating?
could do is we could maybe look at what the sidewalk comes back at and kind of marry or kind of poach some of their language and some of their requirements. Because, when you're talking curb and gutter, if you have like a half inch or an inch of displacement, whether that's settling or raising, it's going to create ponding. That flow line is compromised. And so what you get is all the ponding on the curb, and then it comes onto the road, and then your road starts to get eaten away because the water's freeze thawing right at that flag line where the asphalt meets the curb. There's that seam there. So the whole point of the curb and gutter is to capture all that water and shoot it down to a catch basin to get it off the road. Because as soon as you get water standing on the road, your road is eroding. You know, it's you know, and so that's kind of the whole intent of having proper curb and gutters to capture all that water and flow it to the appropriate catch basin.
Would you prefer the flexibility instead of setting like a maximum? If you have that 75,000 a year, is it better just to have a flexibility of doing different amounts of both every year? Or do you see it as an advantage to set like a limit on something?
I think I'd like to set a limit. However, maybe we can put in the policy that it can be something on like a year-to-year basis, can change per staff recommendation or something like that. But at least to give us some sort of
Like a guideline, kind of?
a guideline.
Maybe a different approach would be, given the amount of bad concrete that was put down 15, 20 years ago, that we may need a special line item just for curb and gutter and separate it totally from the sidewalk, so we're not having to,
That's the other
we
option
just
as
handle
well.
it as a separate issue. Is that, how hard is that to do? Yes, I've never tried to add a budget item, line
It's
item.
it would be in the CIP, capital improvement plan, and I think we would just create a new line item in the CIP for that, specifically for that.
So what would happen if, so let's say we did 20,000 for curb and
Yep.
gutter,
Yep.
and that would leave 55,000 for sidewalks. So another approach might be to say up to. So this budget includes up to 20,000 for curb and gutter, and that would leave you flexibility to spend the whole thing on sidewalks if you wanted to,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
rather than having another separate line item. I mean, I just want you to have the most flexibility.
Yeah.
So you don't need to say, oh, well, this year we want more sidewalk money and I want to take it from the curb money, and you don't need that red tape to go through in order just to implement something
Yeah.
that you want to make happen.
Right. Because the other thing too is, with the sidewalks, for example, we're taking a more proactive approach now with the GIS mapping and an inventory that was just passed. So we're going out and we're locating those sidewalks that are in poor condition. The intent of the curb and gutter replacement program is not to do that unless I'm directed otherwise. I'm not going to send a staff person out and have them go and locate all the bad curb in the city. We could, but that's not, right now, basically, it's more of a reactive approach. So a person calls in saying, we have, or if we run across it, when we're out doing some streets or, plowing, our staff will note those areas that need a replacement, so on and so forth. But we're not actively going out to see, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Will you plan to put it into the GIS though, or with this matrix that you're saying, is that just a spreadsheet somewhere else?
The matrix would be, the matrix would be just basically guidelines on the replacement. So it'd basically be, to skip down the qualifiers.
Okay.
Curbs with cracking, it would be explaining these in more detail. So curbs with cracking, well, what does that mean? Is it a half-inch crack? Is it an inch crack? Is it a quarter-inch crack? At what point does it become unsafe, and at what point does it become a failed system that's affecting the road nearby? So that's what I mean by the matrix. It would be spelling out at what point is this a high priority, at what point is it, if we could get by a few more years, and then what's the low priority,
Okay,
so to speak.
I understand.
Yep.
So then, as the bad curb and gutter get called in, would you use the GIS software to track that? Or how will you plan
So
to keep track of which curb and gutter? If you're not gonna do it like we did the sidewalk, that's what
Right.
I'm saying.
Right. So it'd basically be an Excel spreadsheet that we would track the curb and gutter that we would replace.
I think I'd encourage you to maybe think about keeping it in the GIS program, even though it wouldn't be every single sidewalk, every single curb and gutter.
Yep.
And that it would only be ones that got called in or
Sure.
identified somehow.
Yeah.
Discovered.
Yep. No, we can,
Just so everything's always in one spot, and if there's not a tag on that particular curb and gutter, you know that no one's ever looked at it?
yeah. That would make sense, because I think what I could do is I could, let's just say a resident calls in and says, I have bad curb and gutter in my front of my property. Go out and look at it, and then I rate it based upon the matrix that we complete or that we put together, right? And then I can bring that back to the office, upload it into the GIS program. I can put the parameters, and the attributes in the GIS program that I basically highlight this curb and gutter in front of this person's property and code it a high priority, middle priority, or low priority. And then, proceed with bidding out or replacing that, once those are all identified.
And then I would encourage you too, then to, from this point going forward, when we do replace a curb and gutter, put a year on that section so that we know when it was new.
Yeah.
And then over time, most curb and gutter will get into the system. I mean, it won't happen in 5 years if we're only doing 20,000 a year, but
Yeah.
that way
Kinda have a
just like
date.
tree inventory, just like sidewalk inventory, over time it will,
Date stamped,
yep.
future reference.
So we know when it was installed.
Yeah.
And that way too, if it fails, you know that it failed and
Yeah.
who did it and
How long ago it was?
how long ago it was.
Makes sense.
Just the flexibility in writing for procedures point 4, where it says the city engineer shall determine which curbs shall be removed and replaced. You might want to put city engineer or public works director or something, just to
Yeah.
give you more flexibility, depending if that position is there in the future or not, or something, so.
Yeah.
And my other question is on the qualifiers.
Yep.
Curbs that are raised by more than 0.5 of an inch, so half inch,
Yep.
should also be replaced. I just didn't know if that, if you want to stick with that number, if you want to give yourself some
Some
more.
wiggle room there.
Yeah, some more wiggle room. I don't know if that's from another policy or something, but
Yeah,
I
it
don't,
was, yeah.
I don't know if you could say 0.75 or just 1 inch or something, just to give you more
Yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah, there's a lot of curb with
That's what I was thinking. You could have a ton of,
a displacement of a half an inch in the city.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helps you to
Right.
switch that, so.
And, if you walk around downtown especially, there's a lot of curb lines that have basically disintegrated as well, that there are no curb. For example, Locust Street in front of like Noki's and so on and so forth. I mean, there's nothing there. So, I mean, I think the city can be a little more proactive with their curb replacement.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I don't know if we still do it or not, but there's places, Hunter Hill Road, for example, is one where there's been a lot of asphalt fill put into the broken out sections at the joints.
Yep.
But I noticed, walking down that holds water back.
Yep.
The asphalt holds ponds water.
Yep.
So
And those are just temporary fixes, and we would want to replace that curb and gutter completely.
And you would probably only do that when you were, I can't afford, I don't plan on fixing it this year, but I need to.
Yeah,
Or-
exactly.
Or maybe I'm gonna wait 2 years till we replace the road and we'll
Yep.
do the
Yep.
curb and gutter all at the same time.
Yep.
So-
Exactly.
So it's a fix when things are pretty bad.
Yeah.
Is that when you apply it?
Because you also have to consider too is complete road construction projects. So for example, let's just say Vine Street, the curb on Vine Street was broken up at a joint. Instead of going in there replacing that curb last year, knowing that we have this project coming up, I would direct staff to go in and just do a temporary Band-Aid on it, knowing that it's going to be replaced in the future. And I'm sure that's kind of what happened in the past too, is they had these bad joints and they just put in some hot mix asphalt just to get by, and it just you just forget about it. Nothing was probably written down or anything like that, or no steps were taken to put in a replacement program. So, now we got to start identifying those areas that had been fixed like that and doing a full replacement.
Yeah. The other thing about the budget is that with this sidewalk assessment, we're already concerned about whether we have enough money in there to take care of sidewalks. Plus, we really haven't started looking at trails yet,
Right.
and which may be a totally separate item.
Right.
So
Yep.
I would really encourage, we look at separate funding for that curb and gutter thing.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the inventory comes back at and how many high priority sidewalks there are out there.
That'll drive
It will
drive our
drive the
decisions.
budget and the decision. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
How much money we appropriate in the future. Because we want to take care of those high hazard areas immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
I have,
Go ahead.
I have one question. In the paragraph under the word procedures.
Yep.
After initial contact is made with the Public Works Department,
Yep.
who's making that initial contact?
So that would be like if a resident were to call in a bad curb and gutter, that's who I would be referring to there.
Can we spell that out somehow in there?
Yeah, I'd
By the
like-
property owner, by a budding property owner.
Right. That's one way, but I think we also can drive it ourselves, and I don't see that in here, that the city may say, this is bad enough, something has to happen, because the property owner may not want to pay half of that. And we say, sorry, that has to be replaced, or we're going to lose the road.
Right.
I'm assuming that's a logical scenario.
Yep, it is.
And at some point, we may say, we're going to do that, and it's just like when the streets get replaced. There's an assessment.
Yeah.
So in fact,
When the
then,
sidewalks do.
maybe another paragraph in the top of that.
Spelling
So-
that situation
Yeah,
out.
the situation where we just identified the
city
problem
may-
ourselves, we're gonna
City may identify.
identify it, we're gonna put it on the list, and then what's the policy and procedure to contact then we have to make contact with the homeowner.
Yep.
And then, so something just to include both
Yep.
both situations.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely want to give ourselves
That flexibility.
the authority and flexibility to
Yep.
initiate that.
Okay.
Great.
I'll make
Yeah,
those
good
changes.
job. I like having policies and
I'll
procedures.
just, what I'll do is I'll make these changes and I'll just put it on next month's agenda under unfinished business for your review again. So,
Sounds great.
Okay.
Item 4, review draft policy for alley improvements.
Yes. So I was fortunate enough to be involved in a alley improvement program in New Richmond, and so what we did up there was we went out and we basically rated every alley. Well, let's just start at the beginning. Okay. Alleys are in our current assessment policy, the city of Hudson does spell out alley maintenance and the costs associated with that. So in the commercial district, the assessment is 100% assessed against the benefited property. Okay. In the residential district, the city picks up 50%, and then the two adjoining property owners pick up 25% each. So 50, 25, 25. That's what we have currently stated in the alley maintenance. There's nothing identified in the CIP for alley maintenance, and I don't think there has been ever. And so basically up to this point, what's been done in the alleys is, if there's spots that need to be repaired or replaced, we'll try to do that in-house as best as we can. Some of the bigger portions or the bigger projects, we'll hire them out. But those are few and far between. It's patchwork and piecemeal together. And so what we did in New Richmond was, first thing that we did, they had a mix of crushed rock alleys and asphalt alleys. So what we did is we went out and we rated every single alley, basically kind of like a pacer rating that we would have on a road, okay? So every alley was rated. And then based upon those ratings, we created a priority list of this alley is the one that's gonna get done first, so on and so forth, and that's how we repaired the alleys. So what I would suggest is the city of Hudson do that same practice, just because I'm familiar with it. I think it's a good practice to have, all of our roads are rated, why aren't all the alleys rated? So on and so forth. So then that leads me to kind of the proactive versus reactive. So we go out and we rate all these alleys and we have it in a spreadsheet. Do we as a public works committee and a council, are we gonna be supportive of going out and repairing these alleys? Or is it gonna be more reactive if we get a bunch of property owners that live on that same alley calling the city and having kind of like a petition to fix their alley? So that's kind of the where I'm looking for direction. What do we want to do in the future as far as an alley maintenance program, because like I said, there's nothing in the CIP that we have designated for alleys, and you know as well as I do, is we don't even have enough money to maintain our roads adequately. So, I mean, it's something to consider moving forward. I know our alleys are in rough shape. I plowed them a number of times this winter to help the guys out, and it's they're rough. I mean, you've all driven down some of them, so I mean, I think it'd be a good practice to be more proactive. I just don't want to put the city and the council in a situation where they're fighting with residents fixing an alleyway when we can't even fix their road out in front of their house. So then that leads me down to, you know, a majority resident consent, kind of what I touched on. You know, is it more proactive or reactive? Do we wait for residents? Do we make kind of this program public, saying, you know, if you get 75% of the people living on your alley a petition to the city to repair your alley, we'll put you on a list and we'll get it done in the future. We'll put it in a program to get it replaced. Do we include monies in the CIP just specifically for alley replacement? You know, a typical alley will run between $20,000 to $30,000 to replace and repair. And that's just one, you know, that's just one block.
Yeah, was that a single lift? Is that what?
That
what's typical?
was 2 1.5-inch lifts, because I don't know, the other thing that New Richmond ran into is a lot of they had to be rated to withstand garbage truck traffic, and I believe we have garbage truck traffic in a majority of our alleys too, so we would have to construct our alleys to meet those standards to withhold that weight. And then finally, you know, at New Richmond, we went through the process of creating an ordinance for alleyways specifically. And I don't know if that's something that we should do here at the city, or, you know, I think it'd be appropriate if we were to do an alley maintenance program to have it in the ordinance for supporting documentation. So, all that to be said is, you know, do you think it's appropriate for the city of Hudson to have a program in place for alley maintenance? Yes or no?
I would answer yes. I think by ignoring them, we're putting our head in the sand and pretending that it's not gonna happen or need money and resources.
Right.
So,
Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. So I think what I would suggest is let me do some initial ratings.
How many alleys do we have? Do we know?
I don't know.
that, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my
I
head.
think we
How many
replaced it in
miles of
19.
alleys do we?
Right.
Wasn't it 92 that we did it? I can't remember the year.
We probably have, let me think about too, kind of the alley map that I used to plow, probably between 25 to 35 alleyways. Seems like more. If you're going block by block, then it would be more like 90, I would guess.
90 blocks worth of,
90 blocks.
Yeah,
I think that's an important number to know,
right.
because if you're talking about that each one's 28 to 30,000
30,
to do a full repair,
Yep,
and that's a significant number.
right. Yep,
Yeah, I think it should also, you know, just like the rest of it, be in the GIS and,
yep. Okay.
And I think we'll get some discussion around how you prioritize. May not be just condition, it may be use of that alleyway as well.
Sure.
Is it heavily trafficked? Is it light? Do garbage trucks use it, or
Mm-hmm.
do they not? So.
Yeah. For the purpose of, at what point in time do I create an ordinance for supporting documentation? Should I start drafting that for future council meetings?
I would say, what do you guys think? Ready to start moving?
Are we at that point now, or should we do
You know-
some legwork first?
You know what I would do?
I think some legwork first.
Because we're not gonna do anything this summer by any means,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
so we have time.
What I would probably first suggest is just the rating system, I think, is the most important thing.
Okay,
The inventory and the rating system.
get the inventory done.
Yeah, and then I think when we know what we're talking about in terms of, is this 70% of the alleys that need work? Is this 10% of them? Then we have a better sense of what we're really looking at, and I think that will help us draft like the ordinance. So I think I would just start on the ground with the rating system.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay.
Let the need drive the,
Right, we'll collect the data, we'll bring it back, and then we'll make some decisions moving forward based upon
Yeah.
what we find, what the ratings are. Okay, fair enough?
it's good, good work. And I was, because I had a question about usages, you know, when after the comment I heard from someone about how destructive would be the wrong word, how
Impactful?
the impactful garbage trucks are relative to cars
Yeah.
on any surface.
Yeah.
So we need to.
The one thing that I will say in the city of Hudson, because we only have one, well, I don't know if commercial, can they hire their own? I think they can hire their own. But in all the residential areas, what the city of Hudson has going for it is we have one licensed hauler. So they're not running multiple garbage trucks down the alleys every week. It's one shot and they're out of there. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, we don't have that repetitive traffic, which further deteriorates the alleyway. Because I think the stat they're referring to is one garbage truck is equal to, I believe is it 8,000 or 10,000 vehicles running through that alley.
Wow.
It's very
Wow.
substantial.
Yeah, years back, they did switch over from alley pickup to street pickup, but there's still several alley pickups because they couldn't get it to the street. So I mean,
Yeah.
they probably have a good number.
Yeah, wherever and that's appropriate, wherever they could move that
Mhm.
trash
Right.
pickup out front is the right way to go. So, okay.
Discussion recommendations, including the 11th Street, Hagan Street Bridge replacement in the capital improvements.
So this is an agenda item driven by some discussion at the planning commission meeting. Some of the committee members have noticed the congestion on the 11th Street Bridge, especially during the AM and PM peak hours. Have you seen some of the congestion?
I haven't personally, but
Okay. I've noticed it, especially in the evening. So anyways, they've been looking at this issue, and Mr. Johnson, the Community Development Director, had reached out to SEH to do some preliminary work on, the traffic, the volumes, some options moving forward to alleviate some of that congestion. And so I attached the minutes or the agenda item from the Planning Commission. And kind of the first page and a half is kind of more the data, the volumes, left-hand turns versus right-hand turns, the peak hours, so on and so forth. So if you want to leisurely read that on your own time, I'll skip to kind of the meat of the agenda. So based upon, the traffic volumes that are currently on the 11th Street Bridge, there was a couple of recommendations given by SEH and their traffic engineers on how to alleviate the congestion in the future. First one being a full-scale bridge replacement, okay? And that would be $2.8 million. Now, according to this document, there was not a study, but a inspection of the bridge done recently, June 27, 2018. So just last summer. There was a routine inspection. Several deficiencies were cracking and spalling. The paint of the steel beams also flaking. The deck is in relatively good condition with minor transverse underside cracking and top surface abrasion. So basically, none of these, problems that were visualized during the inspection, they give an overall rating, sufficiency rating of 86.2. So based upon that efficiency rating, the bridge is not eligible for state or federal rehabilitation or replacement funding due to the relatively high ratings. The bridge is owned and maintained by the state. So needless to say, if we were to approach the state or the federal government to help fund this, if we were to ultimately put this in a CIP for replacement, it would be strictly a city cost. They wouldn't share in any of the costs because, you know, according to their traffic analysis and their rating, the bridge is sufficient for the city of Hudson. So option number one is full-scale replacement. Another option that was identified would be to expand the east side of the bridge and create another designated right-hand turn lane. And I'll just read kind of, widening of the bridge is possible, but would have to be done in conjunction with Department of Transportation. The bridge would be most economically widened by 12 feet with the addition of a single girder, an additional pier column, and widened abutments. Widening beyond 12 feet would require additional girders. Widen the bridge 12 feet to the east to create an additional lane would have a construction cost of approximately $650,000. Okay. And so what that would do, because right now, if you're going northbound, you know, you have a a left-hand turn lane, and you have a straight right-hand turn lane. And what's happening is the people that are going in that straight right-hand turn lane, a person wants to go straight, and basically all that traffic is backing up on the bridge and then on the Crestview Drive, and I've seen it go almost back to the Hudson House in the PM time. So by widening that bridge to the east and creating that designated right-hand turn lane, then now you have a designated left-hand, you have a straight through, and then the people that want to go right have that designated right-hand turn lane to get, you know, to the commercial district or get to the east, or that slip ramp that's heading west. And so if you go, let me see here. There is a count on how many turns. So the PM peak hours, there's 1,552 vehicles on the PM peak hours, with 351 turning right, traveling primarily to commercial businesses or the westbound slip ramp. Okay. So, I mean, there is a significant amount of people that are making that right-hand turn. So by creating that designated right-hand turn lane, it in theory, it should alleviate a lot of the congestion that happens on that bridge. So the other question is, you know, that bridge is kind of the portion of the bike trail. St. Croix County Master Plan, Trail Master Plan identifies that bridge as a main thoroughfare to connect basically the south side of Hudson to the north side of Hudson. And right now the pedestrian accommodations on that bridge are really not up to standard or adequate. There's just a sidewalk that was added recent. I don't know how, were you here when they added that sidewalk and expanded that to the west? I think it spells it out in here, but needless to say, I mean, it's just a raised sidewalk on that west side of the bridge. So there's really no designated trail or bike accommodations over that bridge, and it's kind of playing chicken if you do cross that bridge with the bike. So I mean, that's another thing to keep in mind as we're looking at this replacement. So needless to say, kind of to sum this all up. Oh, and the last option that SEH identified would be to review the current signal timing and phasing. Left-hand turn phases exist on all four approaches. Efficiencies could be made with timing adjustments and possibly phasing changes. So, and that would be, you know, we would get an LOE from SEH or a traffic consultant to come in here and look at phasing and how we could signal or change the timing on the signals to help alleviate some of that congestion. And it would probably be cost between, best guess estimate, 3 to 5 for something like that, I would estimate.
Just to get the traffic engineering.
Look at, you know, the traffic volumes, use the data that we already collected, and then kind of coordinate how long that left-hand green arrow stays left-hand green and so on and so forth, so that it could, you know, clear that traffic a little more efficiently.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So, you know, kind of to wrap this up, and Mike Johnson wanted me to bring this agenda item to Public Works Committee for their recommendation. You know, right now, it would have to go into a capital improvement plan in the future, and the soonest one that we have coming up is 2021. Whether or not we do a full-scale replacement or just widening that adding that 12-foot lane to the east, you know, that's a decision that Public Works can recommend to the council and ultimately be voted on. But if that's a project that you think is worthwhile to support, a motion would be appropriate. You know, the other thing to consider too is there is the exit 2 interchange, Carmichael interchange, needs to be revamped in the future, and we're probably talking within 6 to 10 years, based upon, you know, all the design, engineering, funding, so on and so forth is going to be the main driver of that. You know, the city has been in contact with the county because the county does maintain that bridge. It has a vested interest in that bridge, but to get in the state legislature and get funding appropriated for that interchange,
Exit 2?
for exit 2. There is some preliminary designs on what it would look like to alleviate some of the congestion, and then it would be a full-scale build-out once that's complete. You know, from basically Vine Street moving north, or I'm sorry, Carmichael moving north of that interchange would be a full-scale build-out, you know, widening the 4 lanes, so on and so forth, to accommodate the added congestion. So, but in order to, if you think about it, you know, basically the city of Hudson has two bridges to get from the south side to the north side of the city. So if you start doing work on the Carmichael Bridge in, let's just say 6 years or 8 years, all that traffic you're going to push to 11th Street. Well, there's no way that the way that the 11th Street Bridge is currently designed can handle that traffic by any means. So does it make sense to do the 11th Street Bridge before you even look at the Carmichael interchange, or do you know, which one becomes a higher priority? So that's another thing to think about in the future as far as which project to support and which one to make a higher priority. You know, and we also have, there's a lot of projects on the docket. You know, you got the expansion of the wastewater treatment facility. You got the fire hall this year. You got, you know, Highway 35 coming through town, public works facilities in the future. You know, so I mean, there's a lot of high dollar items facing the city in the
Right.
next 5 years. So I mean, it's just a matter of, and we don't need to take action on this tonight if you don't feel comfortable to it, but at least making you aware that this has been talked about at the planning commission level, and that they wanted your feedback on what you would recommend moving forward.
It would seem like, just what you said, that we would want to have 11th Street revamped before we even tackle exit 2.
Right.
Without that, they're going to be backed up all the way to Carmichael.
Yeah.
So that's really, would get really bad.
Yep.
If you can facilitate that flow.
Great.
The other thing, it's with the engineering study, one of the things, you know, Carmichael Road flows so well now
Yeah.
compared to what it did. And
Yep.
it's awesome. So it's not just it's not just the timing, it's the control mechanism. It's the
Right.
using cameras instead of signals, and I think that's probably what I would hope that the engineer would be looking at that. How are we gonna, we can't just time it, because I've sat there waiting for lights when there's nothing coming for
Yeah.
30, 45 seconds, you know. I said, this really doesn't have to, there's nobody ever comes that corner, you know. So
Right.
we're waiting for them. So,
Yeah.
something that's more intelligent
Yeah.
than just the timers would be, I would hope to come out of that.
So I think for tonight, what I would recommend is, I think a motion to direct staff to obtain an LOE for traffic timing study to be performed. Let's get a price on that. And then I'll bring it back to a future committee meeting for approval if we have the monies available to do that. But I think that's step one,
Right.
you know,
The LOE would then
low-hanging fruit.
recommend, here's a couple solutions for you.
Yeah.
you know, and here's the price tags for those
Right.
solutions.
Because they would also, you know, what we could include is, you know, not only we would look at the Cooley Road and 11th Street intersection, but we would also look at the Crestview and Hagan Street intersection, the one on the south side of the
Yeah.
bridge, so that they kind of marry each other and talk to each other
Yeah.
and work with one another. It's really important there.
I would move that, the LOE,
Okay.
for staff, to
Yeah,
direct
I
staff.
I can second that.
Okay, moved and seconded that we have staff create an LOE for a traffic engineering study on the 11th Street Bridge intersections. Is that, any Is that
Signal timing.
sufficient?
Signal timing. Yep.
Signal timing,
Yep.
And phasing.
And phasing.
signal timing and phasing. You got that?
I got
You
it.
get it right.
I got it.
Any more discussion?
I just had one more question about the option 2.
Yep.
Can we move on this?
Oh, sure,
Is that separate?
absolutely.
Part of this motion?
Yep. No, it's not part of the motion.
All right, then, if there is no discussion, I'll entertain a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously passed.
So I did have one more question.
Yep.
Right.
Option 2, the expansion of the east side of the bridge.
Mhm.
Does that solution help make it more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, that bridge? Is that enough of a solution to, I mean, we really need to be able to walk from the north to the south and bike from the north to the south. And so I wasn't sure, and you don't need to answer right now, but I think that's as we make that final decision, I mean, that's a huge difference in money. It's $2 million difference.
Yeah.
That's a big number. However, we want the solution. I don't want to throw money at a problem if it's not the full solution
Sure.
for the, for the
Yep.
future.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta kind of weigh the short-term benefits versus the long-term solution of the,
Right,
of the
right.
bridge. Yeah, absolutely. And what's best for the city moving forward, 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, what's
It's
better,
kinda-
what's
it-
better for the future
Yeah.
residents?
Yep, absolutely.
My thought is just, and I appreciate that question. My thought was, if the bridge is in good safety shape,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
But we're a growing community and we're putting in St. Croix Meadows and a baseball field and we have all this stuff going on in Carmichael. Just to brainstorm, would it be to our advantage to think about a third crossing somehow, a third bridge that would somehow go in there? I know you've talked about like a pedestrian or biking bridge or something like that. But my thought is maybe, I don't know exactly where that would go, but it'd be interesting to think about that as we get more traffic. Because we might be better off in the future kind of building from scratch than going back and doing an existing bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's not right now, but I'm just saying to think about
Mm-hmm.
as the need develops, if that makes sense, so.
I had heard about some discussion that was being done through some county contacts,
Okay.
and, but nothing ever came of it, as to any resolution. I'll go back and ask. But, yeah, a third bridge would certainly help, but where do you put it?
Right.
You can hardly squeeze it between
Right,
11th Street and exit 2. There was a slip ramp there.
Right.
That they took out,
Mm-hmm.
which I know there are a lot of people here in the city think we should put that slip ramp back in.
Yes. Yeah.
that's it.
State won't let us.
But I think short of the third bridge, if we didn't do that, I think it makes sense to add, because I guess what I'm trying to say is, as the development gets going in the ballpark and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if there's work on, we're gonna need something that's gonna have to just be wider to get folks through there at busy times, so,
Right.
yeah, it makes sense.
You
I
have the
think.
Atwood property on the north side.
Exactly.
putting
I think we're gonna have to expand it, so,
Right.
at some point.
That 11th Street, I'm sure, will be part of the exit strategy for the people who know that Carmichael's going to be bottled up. They're going to come across Hanley and swing
Right.
around and come across 11th Street. That's what I'd do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing, the other unique situation at that 11th Street Bridge is on the north side, that Cooley, 11th Street intersection. There's only so much capacity going down Cooley or going north and on 11th Street into the residential area. It's not like you can create this super wide bridge because it's all gotta get bottled down
Right.
to
Right.
a one-lane road anyway. So there's only so much you're able to do there to
Right.
alleviate that congestion
Yeah.
and have it be beneficial,
Yeah.
So,
So the strategy of creating the turn lanes,
yeah.
so that traffic.
At least you get
does
that
not go
traffic.
into the residential
Yeah.
moves.
Getting out of there.
I think that would help a
Yeah.
lot.
And then you wouldn't
Right.
have, yep, so,
I would, if I could summarize what I'm hearing is, one, is it has to address the bike pedal access,
Mhm.
whatever we do.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if I heard this or if it's my personal opinion, but the expansion, addition of the width makes, in terms of both cost and timeliness,
Mhm.
makes sense to me, as opposed to, and so we're preparing to, and the bridge is safe. Appears to be, I think it said there's another 20 years
Yep.
on the existing spans. So, all right, do you guys, I'm putting words in your mouth, I'm sorry. Do you agree that the expansion of the bridge as opposed to replacement is what does that make sense, more sense? If you're
Yeah.
looking for feedback,
Yeah.
does that make more sense, or am I misreading this?
Well, that's kind of why I asked the question on, does it solve the bike ped problem? If it does, then absolutely, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then are we, being short-sighted?
Right.
Definitely, yeah.
Because or the third bridge, would need a number on it
Yeah.
before choosing the 2.8 replacement,
Yep.
Right. Absolutely.
I'm not an engineer, but I'm going to think outside the box for a second. Could there ever be a possibility of somehow making like a circular ramp or something, and you would put the pedestrians and the bikes above the bridge, so it would be a separate big area where people could cross over, and you'd have the cars with the expanded lane under or something like that? Again, I don't know what the design would be, but it would be nice to separate and somehow get those pedestrians and bikers on top on a different level, so they're not, they can't be hit by a mirror or whatever. It's just because it's such a narrow bridge. But that would certainly open it up somehow. But again, it'd be interesting just to, talk to some engineers and see what's possible. I don't know how that works, but
Yeah.
that's an interesting idea. I like it.
Well, I mean, you see designated bike bridges all over, in the cities.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not that it's not doable by any
no, but you
means.
understand, I'm saying like
Yeah.
a two-level thing.
Oh, a
somehow.
two-level
A
thing?
two-level,
Okay.
so the cars would be on the first level like they are,
Yeah.
but somehow we'd make a way to have bikes and pedestrians be on top of it. I'm thinking of like the U of M where I went to college, so,
Oh, yeah.
you have the cars underneath and you have the walk bridge across the Mississippi, but,
Right.
I mean, I don't know how that works, but it'd be interesting as we think about redoing it, because that would be a great option for pedestrians and bikers, and it would probably encourage people to actually cross the bridge, so.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's gonna cost more, obviously, but so I don't know how that works, but.
Yeah. But something to think about and look at
Yeah.
when we do cross that bridge.
We'll come to it.
Thank you.
That was punny.
You got what you need on that? You got what you need on that?
I do. Yes. Thank you.
Let's get down to the update, Hudson Urban Forestry.
Just a couple of quick items from the Hudson Urban Forestry Board. We did get 2 submissions for the strategic plan and rewriting the ordinance. One came in at approximately $5,000. The other one came in at approximately $20,000. So we approved the strategic plan for $5,000. So we'll be working on that throughout the summer and rewriting the ordinance. And this is per the DNR grant that we received. So that's rolling. That project is rolling. We're going to be moving forward with sending the letters out to Heritage Greens finally. It's with the dense ash tree population out in that subdivision. So met out there with staff this morning. We identified the trees that we're going to be removing and replacing. So we're going to be moving forward with that project as well. So to get that off the list. Arbor Day was held 2 weekends ago. We had on Friday we went out to the school, St. Pat's and Trinity. We held a program there. Well attended, probably 75 kids,
Or more. I think
more,
there might
yeah.
have been 100, yeah.
Really nice program. Mayor was there, and then we had members from Urban Forestry Board were there as well and gave their speeches, and the students did some projects. So it was a really good day. Planted a tree and snapped some photos, and then Saturday we had groups of the Hudson Urban Forestry Board and some volunteers go and plant some trees down Lakefront Park. So that was a good event. So looking forward to the one next year. So that's pretty much all I have for updates of the Hudson Urban Forestry Board. Oh, I'll say come May, Ken Holman, the longtime chair, is resigning his seat, and there is a nomination to elect Tim Hall, the new chair. He currently sits on the board, so It's a formality at this point, but Tim Hall will be the new elected chair of that board. So.
Very good. And finally, updates on the
Yeah.
public works projects. You have anything going?
Yeah, it's not busy at all. Just a couple things here. Farner was in earlier this spring and completed the 2018 street maintenance project, which included flex patching and crack filling. This is the project that got pushed back because they couldn't complete it in the fall last year due to the weather. So they came in here early and got it done. So they're done with that portion of the project. We did. Council approved the 2019 project at the last meeting. Gave it to a company, Asphalt Technology Associates out of St. Cloud to do the 2019 project. So I believe we just sent the contract off to them this week, or late last week. So we'll look for that to be returned and get a schedule together. Vine Street started. They did a closure on May 8th with the detour, and I haven't received a call. I know Andrew Olson, our inspector, has fielded a couple phone calls from people and residents, a couple with some issues during peak hours on 11th Street in Wisconsin, being able to make left-hand turns or right-hand turns onto the street. So I've been meaning to touch base with him to see if we need to put up some temporary stop signs or something like that to alleviate the congestion. But they started with their milling, and they've been replacing their sanitary lines this week. They did their temporary sanitary water line so that people can still flush their toilet and use their sink, so on and so forth. So they had to get that up and running. So I mean, hopefully the weather stays good and we get the project completed on time. But so that's kind of the updates that I have right now.
Okay. Anything else? I guess the next question would be items for next month's agenda. And what was the date that we set for that?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
I think it's Monday,
Sent out 3.
Monday in
next
June.
3.
It's the 20-something, what's the
17th or 24th?
I have the 24th,
24th, I think, yeah.
5 o'clock.
and I had a hold on my calendar for that night for, depending on what happens with our
City administrator.
the city administrator position.
Yeah.
So we may have to be flexible,
Okay.
depending on what.
Yeah, we just need 24-hour notice to move a meeting date and time.
And for me to check it on the weekends.
Does that include weekends?
Yeah.
Public notice.
Business days.
Okay. Yeah, that's the whole month of June and July are
Right.
kind of iffy for that. So do you have any items, anything that you would like to have us take a specific look at?
Not at this point, I don't.
Okay. Very good.
If you think of any, just email myself or Jim. And
Okay.
Perfect.
May I ask a question on the agenda? Would it be, I don't know if we want to do it, would you guys like to see the agenda before it gets published? Does that really make any difference, or is that just one more piece of paper that you have to, we have a full agenda, but if there's something, maybe we'll do it this way, if there's something that you really want to get on the agenda, make sure that Deb, Mike, or I know about it, and
Okay,
Absolutely.
yep,
we'll do it that way.
sounds good.
Okay,
I would move to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're all gonna make our next meetings.
Thanks.
Have fun at the game.